Hey, how's it going, everyone? Tim Brown. I'm talking about podcasting and being on podcasts and why to do it. A couple of reasons: networking, getting attention, and getting links for SEO. So I'm going to talk about those things today. Why I do podcasting, why I'm guesting on podcasting, even why I'm sponsoring some roofing industry podcasts. So as a roofer or as a contractor, I feel like the important first principle here is that you need more attention. I love the way Grant Cardone says this. He says, if they don't know you, they can't flow you. So ultimately, in your area, in your niche, it's good to have more attention, and podcasts are one way to do this. And sometimes, people might have objections like it's a little bit of a waste of time. I'd rather be out there selling. Hey, maybe these podcasts don't have an insane amount of traction yet or whatever it happens to be. But in my experience, it's a little bit more like networking, a little bit more like you don't always have to be on the crazy big podcast. You can collaborate with people and be useful to them. And then also you're kind of by just like association collaborating with their guests, especially if you're like sponsoring something or something like that. But so the first principle is you need more attention. How to do it: you find podcasts or online series, let's say like Facebook Lives or whatever, that serve your community. So that's the important part. I don't spend a ton of time. I have done it, but I don't spend a ton of time out here like on marketing or let's say like agency podcasts, because there's hundreds. I'm personally not on those a ton. So I'm not wasting my time on that. I'm looking at who am I serving and how could I be on more stuff that's for them. Because I always say the most important question in marketing is who is it for? So that's a big one. And then, so you find podcasts that serve who you want to talk to, and you then you outreach to them. You send them a message. I find that the most effective ways are like Facebook and LinkedIn rather than email. Texting, obviously, if you have their connection. You reach out to them. You give them topics that you'd like to chat about that would fit in with their theme. So like I often will look at the titles that they've had on previously, or look at guests like me that they've had on previously, and I try to fit in with that, to like whatever I have of value, to try to kind of fit in with that series. And then, just give them topics. So I try to come up with some good topics that would make sense. And sometimes a lot of times I'll listen to a couple episodes of their podcast just to get a sense of the feel. So I want to match a little bit of how they're interacting with the world. I want to make sure that I'm not just butting in with my perspective, that I'm getting some kind of balance, like how much is the interviewer talking, how much is this person talking, that kind of thing. So this is to be on other people's podcasts. Use it for networking, basically getting eyeballs and ears, but also links. So this is something that people don't realize. Just getting on people's podcasts, a lot of those podcasts not only go out on sometimes on their website, but they also go out on, they're syndicated on other websites. So you could be on like 3 to 5 websites that are all linking to you. Usually like podcasting sites or like these podcast syndication sites, but they're often decent links. So make sure you're kind of giving your links, or they're putting them in the show notes, or those types of things. And then those links are getting back to your site. And I'll just give a brief explanation for those who aren't super into search engine optimization. Links are really good for your Google visibility. So the more links you have, the more credible your website looks to Google, because essentially it's like a citation or a vote for your website. And the more credible websites, the more authoritative websites, links count more. So getting on podcasts is really good for for linking as well, which is really good for your SEO. And so those are some of my quick reasons. I'd love to hear if you guys have any topics. I'm going to step out of my office here for a second. what do you guys have as reasons to podcast? Because I see a lot of people out here doing it. The roofing industry doesn't have that many podcasts, but it's fun to be part of the ones that do exist. Yo, what's up, Chuck? Good to see you, bro. Chuck, by the way, I just was on Keeping It Real yesterday, and I'm super excited to be a sponsor, new sponsor for Keeping It Real. And support your local your other podcasts. You know, Chuck, in his local area of San Antone, could be sponsoring local podcasts that are focused on like community or leadership, and those types of things. Maybe get some HOAs or some property managers or something interested through that as well. So I'm talking to Chuck, and I'm sponsoring Keeping It Real. I'm also sponsoring Behind the Tool Belt and the Start, Build, Grow show. So I believe in this stuff. I definitely think that the Facebook Live stuff also is very useful way to get out there. So I like the podcasts are doing that. But yeah, as a roofer in a local area or as a contractor, you can do this same principle in your area and sponsor. Be a guest, be a sponsor. Just a lot of opportunities to get in front of people, and it's a great networking tool. So I think that's my biggest reason. It's in my experience, I like an average podcast. Just being on one podcast is like an average one is like a lead to me. So like one lead, but also like the exposure. So if there's any activity that I can do with my day, just like if I was a roofer, I'd be door knocking because I like the ratios. I would probably be mixing that in. I like the ratios with podcasts. Like I get leads from them, and you could too. I get leads and exposure. So I think some people kind of think to themselves like, is it worth my time? And what I'm telling you is it absolutely could be. And then the networking. So if you have your own podcast, I'll do one little diatribe about why you might want to have your own podcast. Have your own podcast to network. It gets you access to people that you wouldn't normally have access to. Like I have people on my show that otherwise I'm not gonna, it's like, hey, you wanna have a coffee or you wanna have a Zoom meeting? You wanna have a Zoom meeting with me? Like, why? You know what I mean? Like that feels like sales, but podcasting feels fun. So this is a way to just also collaborate with people you want to learn from. So if you're doing your own podcast, it allows you to learn and soak up all this good information and network with people that otherwise, like, why would they take that meeting? So you can get around higher level people by having a podcast. I think the one crucial piece is you do want it to be serving your ideal customer. Otherwise, you can spend a little too much time on it. But you want to be serving your ideal customer and also collaborating with people that could refer you business. So that's how I use podcasting. I hope it's useful for you as a roofer or contractor out there. I really appreciate you guys being part of these lives. Throw a thumbs up if you don't mind on this, or a heart or something like that, and say what's up. Isaac Smith, what's up, brother? Appreciate you being part of this. Throw a comment on here if you're watching. Appreciate you guys taking the time. Support your local podcast. Support your city. Like if you can find some city ones or ones that are serving like leadership or families or something in your area, sponsor a couple. Try it out. See how it goes for you. And then also, of course, support the roofing podcasts out there. There's not that many that stay consistent. And I know Chuck just hit like 70, 80. I don't know, Chuck. Comment below how many you hit recently. But to stick with it for that long, support these guys. I believe this type of stuff makes the industry better and is good. Yeah. Isaac says, hey, Tim, I really want to start my own podcast next week. Brother, do it. 84, Chuck. That's amazing. Yeah, Isaac, don't make it too complicated. You can get a blue, like it's called, the brand is Blue Yeti mic for like 80 bucks or less. It's like maybe even 50. And then it just plugs right into your laptop. And you can just use your laptop camera, or you can get a nicer one, but you don't have to overcomplicate it. People give me shit for it a little bit, but I often use my own, just 2 smartphones. How do you get guests? Well, I would maybe, the most important question is, who is it for? Right? Who is it for? Make sure that you're kind of serving your ideal customers, or you have a real reason. Get your reason down. And then once you have your reason, that can define who you should be talking to for guests, because you do want to be thinking, not only who do I want to learn from, but also if I've got who is it for, who is the podcast for, I can choose my guests more easily. So if I am let's say a roofer or contractor in a particular area, I might go after business leaders. If I'm thinking about who is it for, I would either go after families or business leaders, try to make a podcast that's super useful for them. And then I would be thinking about guests, and I would be like, who is going to serve those people? So if I'm serving, let's say, business leaders in my city, I would go choose guests that would be appealing to them. And then I would also potentially, I think business leaders in your area is a really good one. So if Anthony, I don't know where you're at, Isaac, but Anthony Fuschel is watching in Montana, I'd make the Montana Business Leaders podcast, because then I get the possibility of getting commercial jobs, HOAs and stuff like that, but also it might be interesting, or an entrepreneurship podcast or something, Montana entrepreneurship podcast. I'd try to make it localized if I was doing this. And then I'd use it to then get on other podcasts, because I have one, and you want to be part of it. And then I would reach out to people that those people would want to learn from. So the mayor, and I'm saying take shots, a mayor of a bigger city, or the person who runs, stuff. I'm looking for people that run stuff. I'm looking to, Munchie Business Leaders podcast, absolutely. And then I'm looking to get people that have sway on this podcast. I'm looking to get persuasive people that people would want to listen to, but I'd also want to make them feel good. I'm pushing power to power. So there's people in my business, in my community, that have power, and I'm going to try to push power to them. That's something Grant Cardone talks about. The natural inclination is to try to fight other people with power. There's competition, but if you push power to power, how about competition? I don't know if I'd start with competition. I think you absolutely could have competition on there. I think that might be a little, you got to think about what's the most interesting to your ideal customer, and what is the result that you want from this podcast, and try to make stuff that's useful for them. And I think one mistake that people will make on their podcast is not having super clear ideal customer or audience for the podcast, because if you do that, it's just generalized content, and it's to me, even if you have a smaller audience, it's better because it's clear who is it for, and then when you see those people, you can be useful to them. So I don't have any I don't think there's any problem with having competition on your podcast. I just don't know if it'd be the primary purpose, because let's say you're a roofer and you have other roofers on there all the time. I mean, it's good for your networking, so I could see that. You could absolutely do that. But it just depends. Are you going to do a podcast for your industry and use it to just learn a ton for yourself, which I respect, or are you going to do one for the local area and really focus on that? I'm kind of suggesting local area a little bit more, but I definitely understand doing it for the industry too. And I'm happy that those ones exist, because those are ones I sponsor. So, and I'm excited to be on myself. Anyways, I appreciate you guys listening to my rant about podcasting. I hope it's useful to you, and I hope you guys have an amazing day. Support your podcasts, your local podcasts and industry podcasts. All right, guys. Bye.